Don't close your eyes. Look at me. Somebody call 911 now.
Dee grabs the phone. The
Sir,
truckers freeze.
I need you to cough. Cough for me. Come on.
The old man's lips are blue. His fingers claw at his collar. He can't breathe. Whitney wraps her arms around him, squeezes.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
He gasps, one thin, ragged breath.
From the kitchen, Dee shouts,
Whitney! It's past 2. Your wedding, girl. You're late.
She glances at the clock. 2:16 p.m. Her fiancé is standing at the altar right now, waiting. She looks back at the dying stranger.
Nothing more important than this.
She doesn't know his name. She has no idea what this one stubborn choice is about to change.
Ada Parkins for.
Man, to understand why she did that, you gotta know what that wedding actually meant to her. Because to everybody else, it was just one night. To her, it was everything. But to understand why Whitney made that choice, why she didn't even hesitate, you need to know where she comes from and what that wedding actually meant to her. Ridgedale, Georgia. Population just under 2,000. One traffic light, one gas station, one boarded-up textile mill that used to employ half the town, and one diner that still keeps its open sign lit, Dee's Hometown Grill. Whitney has worked there since she was 19 years old. She lives in a rented single-wide trailer behind the church. The porch steps creak so loud the neighbors know when she's home. The kitchen faucet drips no matter how hard she twists it. And on the counter, next to a stack of overdue bills, there's a mason jar with the words "Wedding Fund" written in black marker. Inside that jar, crumpled ones, fives, loose change. $340. 9 years of dreaming. That's what it added up to. Whitney's mother, Lorraine, passed away 2 years ago. Stroke complications. She was 56. Lorraine had worked at that same diner before Dee bought it. Spent 20 years behind that grill, flipping burgers and making meatloaf from a recipe she swore came to her in a dream. When Lorraine died, Whitney didn't inherit money. She didn't inherit property. She inherited a spiral notebook, stained, dog-eared, held together with a rubber band. Every page filled with her mother's handwriting. Recipes, notes in the margins, little things like, "Add more garlic if the man looks sad," and "Cornbread rises better when you hum." Whitney carries that notebook in her apron pocket, every single shift. It's the most valuable thing she owns. After Lorraine passed, things got harder. Rent fell behind. First 1 month, then 2. Whitney's car started slipping out of second gear. She stopped buying coffee so she could save an extra $4 a week. She picked up every double shift Dee offered. Sundays, holidays, didn't matter. She never complained. Not once. Ask anyone in Ridgedale about Whitney Sanders, and they'll all say the same thing. She remembers your name. She remembers your coffee order. She remembers your kid's birthday and asks about it 3 days later. She puts fresh wildflowers in a jam jar on the counter every morning. Picks them herself from the ditch behind the trailer on her walk to work. Dee once told her, "Girl, the way you treat this place, you'd think it was the Ritz." Whitney just shrugged. Mama said dignity don't cost extra. Then Terrence came along. Terrence Moore, 30 years old, mechanic at the only auto shop in town. Quiet, steady, the kind of man who shows up, does the work, and doesn't need applause. He started coming into the diner every morning. Same booth, same order, same time. 6 months of black coffee and scrambled eggs before he finally said more than thank you. One night after closing, he was waiting by her car in the parking lot. Whitney almost hit him with her purse. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said. I've been trying to figure out how to say this for a while." "Say what?" He pulled out a ring. Small. Handmade. He'd shaped it from a repurposed spark plug and mounted a tiny cubic zirconia on top. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't expensive. Whitney cried for an hour. Not because the ring was small, because someone finally chose her. They set the date for a Saturday in June. The ceremony would be at the church, free, because Pastor Green owed Lorraine a favor from years back. The reception was going to be potluck in the church basement. Naomi, Whitney's best friend and maid of honor, volunteered to bake the cake from a box mix. And Whitney's dress? Her mother's dress. White, slightly yellowed, taken in by hand with uneven stitches she hid under a ribbon sash. It wasn't the wedding little girls dream about. But for Whitney, it was everything. The morning of the wedding, Whitney got up at 5. She ironed the dress. She laid it on the bed. She ran her fingers over the ribbon sash and whispered, "Okay, Mama, today's the day." Then she drove to the diner. One last shift. She'd clock out at 2, drive home, change, and make it to the church by 4. 2 hours. That's all she needed. No margin for error. No room for anything to go wrong. At 1:15, while wiping down the counter, Whitney noticed something tucked under booth 6. A leather briefcase. Dark brown. Expensive looking. Monogrammed in gold with 2 letters. H.C. She moved it aside gently, figured someone left it behind. Made a mental note to put it in the lost and found. Then she went back to counting down the minutes. 45 minutes to freedom. 45 minutes to the rest of her life. But what Whitney didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that the rest of her life wasn't waiting at the church. It was about to walk through the front door of that diner. Everything was on schedule. Whitney was counting down the minutes. And then the bell above the door rang one last time. 1:40 p.m. 20 minutes before she clocks out. The diner is almost empty. 2 truckers nursing coffee at the counter. A young mother by the window, cutting pancakes into tiny pieces for her toddler. The ceiling fan wobbles in slow circles. The radio is playing something soft and forgettable. The front door swings open. A gust of warm Georgia air rolls in. An old man steps inside. White, mid-70s. Plain flannel shirt, khaki pants, no jewelry. He doesn't look rich. He doesn't look important. He looks tired, like a man who's been driving a long time with nowhere particular to be. He sits down in booth 6 without waiting to be seated. Doesn't look at the menu right away. Just sits there, hands folded on the table, watching the room, taking everything in. The wobbly fan, the wildflowers in the jam jar, the handwritten specials board. Whitney walks over, order pad ready. "Good afternoon, sir. What can I get you?" He looks up at her, studies her for a moment, not in a rude way, more like he's reading something. Then he smiles, faintly. "What do you recommend, young lady?" His voice is calm, measured. The kind of voice that doesn't rush, like a man who's used to people waiting for him to finish, not the other way around. Whitney notices his hands. She doesn't mean to, it's just habit. 9 years of waiting tables, you learn to read people fast. His nails are clean, trimmed. Not diner clean, manicured. And on his left wrist, there's a faint tan line, a pale stripe where something used to sit. Something expensive, like he took off a watch before walking in, on purpose. She files it away somewhere in the back of her mind, doesn't think about it. "Mama Lorraine's meatloaf special," Whitney says. "Best thing on the menu. My mother's recipe." He nods. "Then that's what I'll have." She writes it down, tears the ticket, clips it to the rail. "Coming right up, sir." He eats slowly, not picking at the food, savoring it. Between bites, he watches the diner, watches Whitney refill a trucker's coffee without being asked, watches her crouch down to the toddler's level and make a funny face that gets a giggle, watches her wipe the counter in smooth circles, humming a song she probably doesn't even realize she's humming. At one point, Whitney passes booth 6 and hears him say, almost to himself, "This is the real thing." She thinks he's talking about the meatloaf. 1:48 p.m., 12 minutes left on the clock. Whitney starts her closing routine. She wipes her last table, folds her rag, begins untying her apron. Her phone buzzes. Naomi. "Girl, where are you? Pastor Green is already here. Terrence is pacing a hole in the floor. The cake almost slid off the table, but I caught it. Barely. You need to get here. Whitney laughs. I'm coming. 12 minutes. I'll be out the door in 8. You better be. I did not spend 3 hours on that box mix cake for you to be late to your own wedding. Whitney hangs up, smiling. She glances at the dress hanging in her mind. White, slightly yellowed, ribbon sash. Her mother's. In less than 2 hours, she'll be Mrs. Terrence Moore. Everything she's been saving for. Everything she's been waiting for. 8 more minutes. That's all. 1:52 p.m. She's about to clock out. Her hand is reaching for the time card on the wall, and then she hears it. A chair scraping against tile. Hard. Fast. Then a sound. Guttural. Wet. Choked. Like someone trying to scream through a closed throat. Whitney spins around. The old man in booth 6 is on his feet, both hands at his neck. His face has gone from pink to red to something darker. His mouth is open, but nothing's coming out. No air, no words, nothing. His water glass hits the floor, shatters. The young mother screams and grabs her child. The truckers push back from the counter, eyes wide, not moving. Dee bursts from the kitchen. What happened? What's going on? Whitney doesn't think. Her body moves before her brain catches up. She looks at the clock. 1:54 p.m. She looks at the man. He's not breathing. She looks at her phone on the counter. Naomi's name still glowing on the screen. And through the tiny speaker, faint, almost ghostly, she can hear the church organ warming up. Her wedding is 45 minutes away. This man has about 60 seconds. Whitney kicks off her shoes, drops her apron on the floor, and runs to booth 6. What Whitney did next, she did on pure instinct. No plan, no hesitation. Just her body moving toward a stranger who was dying 3 feet away from a plate of her mother's meatloaf. She grabs him from behind, wraps her arms around his midsection, locks her fists just above his navel. Sir, I've got you. I've got you. Stay with me. First thrust. Nothing. His body is heavy, twice her size, dead weight leaning forward. Whitney plants her feet, digs in, pulls again. Second thrust. Nothing. His lips are turning blue. His hands are dropping from his throat. He's fading. Dee, where's the ambulance? Dee is on the phone, shouting at the 911 dispatcher. She covers the receiver. 14 minutes! The volunteer crew is across the county on another call. 14 minutes. This man doesn't have 14 seconds. Whitney adjusts her grip. Her hands are shaking. Sweat is running down her temples. She can hear her own heartbeat, loud, fast, drowning out everything else. She thinks about a poster. A Red Cross poster tacked to the bulletin board at church, right next to the announcement about the bake sale. She used to stare at it during long sermons. Fist above the navel, quick upward thrusts, firm and sharp. She whispers to herself, "Come on, Whitney. Come on." Third thrust. Hard. Everything she's got. Something shifts. The old man makes a sound, half cough, half gag. His chest heaves. He sucks in a thin, wheezing breath. But he's not clear. The blockage is still there, still lodged, still killing him. His knees buckle. He's going down. Whitney catches him. Somehow, all 120 pounds of her catches this man before he hits the tile. She lowers him to the floor, gently, carefully, cradling his head so it doesn't crack against the booth. She's kneeling in broken glass now. She can feel it cutting through her uniform, pressing into her knees. She doesn't care. She tilts his head back, checks his airway. She can see it, the piece of meatloaf wedged deep. She remembers something. Years ago, a church picnic. A little boy, couldn't have been more than 4, choked on a grape. Everyone panicked. Everyone except Lorraine. Her mother calmly walked over, tilted the boy's head, and used one finger to sweep the obstruction out. Gentle, but firm. The boy coughed, cried, and 2 minutes later was running around again like nothing happened. Lorraine looked at Whitney afterward and said, "You stay calm when everyone else falls apart. That's how you save somebody." Whitney takes a breath, steadies her hand. She uses her index finger. Carefully, firmly, she reaches in and sweeps. 1 try. 2. On the 3rd sweep, she feels it move. The old man coughs, violent, racking. His whole body convulses. The blockage comes free. He gasps, deep, desperate, the sound of air flooding into lungs that had already started to give up. He's breathing. He's breathing. Whitney holds him there, on the floor of Dee's hometown grill, surrounded by broken glass and spilled water and a plate of half-eaten meatloaf. She holds a stranger's head in her lap and whispers, "You're okay. You're okay. Breathe slow. I got you." His eyes open, wet, red, confused. He looks up at her. For a long moment, he just stares, like he's trying to understand how he's still alive, and why this woman in a grease-stained uniform is the reason. "Thank you," he whispers. His voice is barely there, broken. Whitney nods. "Don't talk. Just breathe." From the counter, her phone is ringing, buzzing across the formica like an angry hornet. Naomi's name, again, and again, and again. Dee walks over, looks at the phone, looks at Whitney on the floor. She says, quietly, "Honey, it's almost 2:30. Whitney doesn't look up. The phone rings a 7th time. Whitney finally reaches for it with one hand, the other still steadying the old man's shoulder. Naomi's voice comes through cracked and high. "Whitney, where are you? Pastor Green says he has another event at 5:30. If you're not here by 3:15, he can't... Whitney, it's your wedding." Whitney closes her eyes, takes a breath. "I can't come. Not yet. Someone's hurt." Silence on the other end. Then Naomi, barely whispering, "Whitney, it's your wedding day." "I know." More silence. Then shuffling, a deeper voice. Terrence. He doesn't shout, doesn't guilt her, doesn't ask her to explain. He just says, calm, steady, the same voice that proposed to her in a parking lot with a spark plug ring. "Do what you gotta do, baby. I'll be right here." Whitney's jaw tightens. Her eyes sting. But she doesn't cry. Not yet. She hangs up. 2:31 p.m. The ambulance finally pulls into the gravel lot. 2 paramedics rush in with a stretcher. They check his vitals. They strap him in. One of them looks at Whitney, still on the floor, glass in her knees, apron soaked, and says, "Ma'am, you saved this man's life. Another minute, and we'd be having a different conversation." Whitney just nods. They wheel him toward the door. But before he's through it, the old man reaches out. His hand, trembling, weak, finds hers one more time. He squeezes. Doesn't say anything, doesn't have to. His eyes say everything. Then he's gone. Red and white lights flashing through the diner windows, then fading down the road. 2:34 p.m. The diner is quiet. The truckers are gone. The young mother left during the chaos. Dee is standing behind the counter, hands on her hips, not saying a word. Whitney is still on the floor. She looks at the clock. 2:34. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2 o'clock. The church is 25 minutes away. Pastor Green's next event is at 5:30. Even if she left right now, right this second, the flowers would have wilted. The potluck food would be sitting out. The cake Naomi spent 3 hours on would be warm and lopsided. It's over. Her wedding is over. Whitney stands up slowly, picks a piece of glass from her knee, wipes her hands on her apron. Then she picks up a broom and starts sweeping. No. Hold on. She gave up her wedding day, the dress, the church, everything, gone, for a stranger. Now put yourself in her shoes. Your whole life saved up in a mason jar, and you just let it go. Could you do that? Be honest. The diner closed early that night. First time in 6 years. Dee flipped the sign, locked the door, and didn't say a word about it. Whitney drove home alone. The trailer was dark when she got there. She didn't turn on the lights. She just stood in the doorway, keys still in her hand, staring at the bedroom. Her mother's wedding dress was hanging on the closet door, right where she'd left it that morning, pressed, ready. The ribbon sash tied in a neat bow, the same bow she'd practiced 4 times the night before. Whitney sat on the edge of the bed. She touched the hem of the dress, ran her fingers along the uneven stitches she'd sewn by hand. And then she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, steady tears rolling down her face in the dark, soaking into the sleeve of her work uniform that still smelled like grease and floor cleaner and someone else's emergency. She cried until she heard the truck pull up outside. Terrence didn't knock. He never did. He just opened the screen door, walked in, sat down next to her on the bed, and put his arm around her. He didn't say, "It's okay." He didn't say, "You did the right thing." He didn't try to fix it. He just said, "We'll do it next Saturday. Or the one after that. Or the one after that. I ain't going nowhere, Whitney." She laughed. A small, broken laugh. Half tears, half relief. "You promise? Woman, I made you a ring out of a spark plug. You think I'm quitting now?" She leaned into him, and for the first time all day, she exhaled. The next morning, Sunday, Whitney opened the diner at 6 a.m., same as always, like nothing happened. She was behind the counter, starting the first pot of coffee, when Dee walked in through the back door, holding a white envelope. "This was on the doorstep," Dee said. "Somebody dropped it off before sunrise." Whitney frowned. She took the envelope. It was heavy. Good paper. Thick stock. No return address. She opened it. Inside, a handwritten note on plain white paper. The handwriting was neat, old-fashioned, slightly shaky. "To the young woman who chose a stranger over her own happiness, I owe you more than you know. Please accept this with my gratitude." Under the note, a cashier's check. $5,000. Whitney stared at it. 5,000. More money than she'd seen in one place in her entire life. More than the wedding fund jar. More than 2 months of rent. More than everything. Dee looked over her shoulder. "Lord have mercy. Whitney, that's... I can't take this." "Go, what?" "I can't take this, Dee." Whitney folded the check carefully, slid it back into the envelope, picked up a pen from the counter, and wrote on the outside, in her own handwriting, "Thank you, sir, but I can't accept this. I didn't do it for money. Whitney." She handed it to Dee. "If anyone comes asking for me, give them this back." Dee stared at her like she'd lost her mind, but she didn't argue. She knew Whitney. She knew Lorraine's daughter. Whitney turned back to the coffee pot. Conversation over. But as she set the envelope down on the register, something caught her eye. The paper. The envelope itself. She held it up to the light. There, faint, almost invisible. A watermark pressed into the stock. A logo. A lion, standing upright, holding a small key in its paw. Whitney had never seen it before, didn't recognize it, didn't think twice about it. She put the envelope in the drawer and went back to work. Under booth 6, tucked against the wall where nobody had noticed, the leather briefcase with the gold monogram HC was still sitting exactly where it had been since Saturday afternoon. Nobody had come to claim it. Not yet. Whitney thought that was the end of it. A scary afternoon, a missed wedding, a kind note from a grateful stranger. Life goes on. She was wrong. Monday morning, 7:15 a.m., the breakfast rush, if you can call 4 regulars and a stray dog outside a rush. Whitney is refilling Earl's coffee for the 3rd time when she hears it. A low, heavy engine pulling into the gravel lot. Not a truck, not a pickup. Something different. She looks through the window. A black Lincoln town car, with tinted windows, rolls to a stop. It parks sideways, taking up 2 spaces. The chrome catches the morning sun. The engine idles for a moment, then goes quiet. Nobody in Ridgedale drives a car like that. Nobody in Ridgedale has ever seen a car like that. Earl sets his cup down. Who in the world? The driver's door opens. A woman steps out. Mid-40s, navy suit, tailored sharp. Heels that have no business on a gravel parking lot. Hair pulled back tight. She walks like someone who bills by the hour. She pushes through the front door. The little bell jingles. She stands there, scanning the room. The wobbly ceiling fan, the wildflowers in the jam jar, the handwritten specials board, with an expression that says she has never set foot in a place like this. Dee steps up from behind the counter, arms crossed. Help you? I'm looking for a woman named Whitney. I was told she works here. Dee doesn't blink. Depends on who's asking. The woman reaches into her jacket and places a business card on the counter. Slides it forward with 2 fingers. Whitney picks it up. Catherine Caldwell, Chief Operating Officer, Caldwell Premier Hospitality. Below the name, a logo. A lion, standing upright, holding a small key in its paw. The same logo from the envelope. Whitney's stomach drops. She looks up. Is he okay? The man from Saturday? Is he okay? Catherine's expression shifts. Something softens behind the corporate mask. Just barely. He's my father, she says, and he'd very much like to see you. Today, if possible. She gestures toward the town car outside. He sent a car. Whitney looks at Dee. Dee looks at the Lincoln. Looks at the business card. Looks back at Whitney. Girl, go. I'll cover your tables. Whitney unties her apron, folds it on the counter. And out of habit, without even thinking, she reaches into the apron pocket and pulls out her mother's recipe notebook. Tucks it under her arm. Then she walks toward the door. But what's waiting for her at the end of that drive? She's not ready for it. Not even close. Whitney got in that car expecting a simple thank you. Maybe a handshake. Maybe another check she'd have to turn down. She wasn't expecting this. The town car pulls out of the gravel lot and onto the county road. Whitney sits in the back seat, hands in her lap, her mother's notebook pressed against her ribs. The leather is cool. The air conditioning hums. She's never been in a car this quiet. She watches Ridgedale disappear in the rearview mirror. The diner, the gas station, the boarded-up mill. Then, fields. Long stretches of Georgia pine. A 2-lane road cutting through the green like a scar. 20 minutes. 30. Whitney's leg starts bouncing. Where exactly are we going? She asks the driver. He glances in the mirror. Not far now, ma'am. At minute 35, the car slows, turns onto a private road. Gravel becomes asphalt. Asphalt becomes smooth stone. And then, a gate. Iron. Tall. It opens automatically as they approach. Whitney leans forward. A driveway lined with oak trees curves up a gentle hill. At the top, a house. No, not a house. A white-columned estate with a wraparound porch, a manicured lawn that could swallow her trailer whole, and a stone fountain in the center of a circular driveway. Water catching the light. Whitney has never seen a house like this. Not in person. Not even on TV. She grips her mother's notebook tighter. The car stops. The driver opens her door. Catherine is already walking up the porch steps, heels clicking on stone. This way, please. Whitney follows. Her sneakers are silent on the same stone. She feels small, out of place, like someone accidentally wandered onto a movie set. On the covered porch, sitting in a wicker chair with a blanket over his knees, is the old man from booth 6. He looks different. Color back in his face, eyes clearer, but still fragile. Thinner than she remembered, like the choking took something out of him that hasn't come back yet. When he sees Whitney, he stands, slowly, carefully. He crosses the porch and takes both her hands in his. There she is, he says, quietly, like he's been waiting. "How are you feeling, sir?" Whitney asks. "Alive," he says. "Because of you." He gestures to a chair beside him. "Please, sit. We have a lot to talk about." Whitney sits. She puts the notebook in her lap. Her fingers trace the spiral binding, a nervous habit. Harold Caldwell studies her for a moment. Then he says, "You gave up your wedding for me. I need you to understand what that means." Whitney opens her mouth to say it was nothing, to say anyone would have done it, but he raises a hand, gently. Don't say it was nothing, because it wasn't. And I want to tell you who you saved before you try to make it small. He settles back in his chair. "My name is Harold Caldwell. I founded a company called Caldwell Premier Hospitality. We own 62 boutique hotels and over 40 restaurants across the Southeast. I stepped down as chairman 5 years ago after my wife, Dorothy, passed." Whitney blinks. She doesn't move. She's not sure she's breathing. "Since Dorothy died," Harold continues, "I've been driving. Alone. Small towns, back roads, places nobody looks twice at. I stop at diners, bed and breakfasts, roadside cafes. No reservations, no name. Just an old man in a flannel shirt ordering whatever's on the special board." He pauses. "You want to know why?" Whitney nods. "Because I spent 40 years building restaurants where people paid $200 for a plate of food and couldn't remember the waiter's name. And after Dorothy died, I realized I couldn't remember the last time someone served me a meal and actually cared whether I enjoyed it. Not as a client, as a person." His voice cracks slightly. He steadies it. "I've eaten in 5-star restaurants on 4 continents, Whitney, and I have never, not once, been cared for the way you cared for me on that floor." Whitney's eyes are stinging. She doesn't wipe them. Harold leans forward. "But I need to tell you something else. I wasn't in Ridgedale by accident." Whitney frowns. "What do you mean?" "Caldwell Premier Hospitality is developing a boutique resort property in this region. I came down personally to scout the area. Quietly. No press, no entourage. I visited 6 diners that week. Dee's Hometown Grill was the last stop." He pauses, looks at her. "Before I choked, before any of that happened, I watched you for 20 minutes. The way you remembered names, the way you put flowers on the counter, the way you crouched down to make a child laugh, the way you treated every person in that room like they mattered." He shakes his head slowly. "That's not training, Whitney. That can't be taught." From the doorway, Catherine clears her throat. She steps forward, arms crossed, polite but guarded. "Dad," she says carefully, "she's a waitress at a diner. We're talking about a $12 million development." Harold doesn't look at his daughter. He keeps his eyes on Whitney. "Your mother was a waitress at a diner when I met her." Catherine goes quiet. Harold reaches into his shirt pocket and pulls out an envelope. Whitney recognizes it instantly. The white envelope. The cashier's check. The one she returned. "In 40 years of business," Harold says, "nobody has ever sent back my money." He holds it up between 2 fingers. "That told me more about you than any resume ever could." And then Harold said something that made Whitney's hands go still on her mother's notebook. "I didn't bring you here to say thank you, Whitney. I brought you here to make you an offer." Whitney's mouth opens. Nothing comes out. Harold reaches beside his chair and pulls out a folder. Thick, official, stamped with the lion and key logo. He sets it on the table between them. "Caldwell Premier Hospitality is going to build a resort in this region. Boutique, 60 rooms, spa, conference center. The anchor of the entire property, the heart of it, will be a restaurant. Farm to table, southern comfort. The kind of food that makes people drive 2 hours out of their way just to sit down." He opens the folder. Inside, architectural renderings, blueprints, financial projections. Whitney sees numbers she doesn't understand. Figures with more zeros than her bank account has ever held. Harold taps the rendering on top. It shows a restaurant. Warm brick exterior, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs, big windows. It looks like a home, not a chain. This restaurant, Harold says, will be built from the renovation of Dee's hometown grill. Same bones, same soul. New everything else. Whitney stares at the drawing. She can see it. The counter where she's wiped 1,000 spills. The window where the morning light comes in. The booth, booth 6, where a stranger almost died. And the menu, Harold continues, will be based on these. He points at Whitney's lap. At the stained, dog-eared spiral notebook she's been clutching since she got in the car. Your mother's recipes, Whitney. Every single one. That meatloaf saved my life. Almost killed me first, but it saved me. And I want the world to taste it. Whitney shakes her head. Not in refusal, in disbelief. Sir, I'm a waitress. I pour coffee and wipe tables. I don't know anything about running a... I'm not finished. Harold pulls a second page from the folder. A contract. Whitney can see her name already printed on it. You will be the general manager and co-creative director of this restaurant. You will have an equity stake, not a salary, not a handout. Ownership. Your name on the building. Your mother's name on the door. Whitney's breath catches. My mother's name? Harold nods. The restaurant will be called Lorraine's. For the first time since she sat down, Whitney can't hold it. A tear slips down her cheek. She catches it with the back of her hand before it hits the notebook. Lorraine's, she whispers. Like she's tasting the word. Like she's hearing her mother's name said out loud for the first time in 2 years, and it still fits. It still sounds like home. And Dee? Whitney asks. What about Dee? That's her diner. She built that place. Harold smiles. Dolores Patterson will be retained as a partner and senior consultant. Full benefits. Her legacy stays. We're building on top of it, not replacing it. Whitney nods, slowly, processing. Catherine steps forward, folder in hand. Her tone has shifted. Still professional, but the edge is gone. There's more. She pulls out another document. A scholarship fund. $50,000. Endowed in the name of Lorraine Sanders. Administered through the Ridgedale Community College for students in culinary arts and hospitality management. Whitney puts her hand over her mouth. Your mother spent 20 years feeding that town, Harold says. This way, she keeps feeding it, long after all of us are gone. The porch is quiet. A bird is singing somewhere in the oak trees. The fountain hums. Whitney looks at the rendering again. The wraparound porch. The warm brick. She imagines her mother's handwriting framed on the wall. The meatloaf special. First item on the menu. She imagines Dee arranging flowers on the counter. Same as always. There's one condition, Harold says. Whitney looks up. What condition? You complete a hospitality management certification program, fully funded by Caldwell Premier. Online, so you can keep working while you study. I'll be honest with you, Whitney. Talent is the spark, but training is the fuel. I want you to have both. Whitney nods. That's fair. That's more than fair. Then she says something that makes Harold sit up straight. I have a condition too. Catherine raises an eyebrow. Harold tilts his head. Go on. Any staff hired for Lorraine's, kitchen, floor, management, Ridgedale residents get first priority. This town gave me everything. I'm not going to build something on top of it that doesn't include it. Harold stares at her. A long, quiet moment passes. Then he leans back in his chair and laughs. A real laugh. Deep, warm, the kind that shakes the shoulders. The first one, Whitney guesses, in a long time. Now you're negotiating like an owner, he says. Catherine writes something on her notepad. She's smiling. Trying not to, but smiling. One more thing, Harold says. Your fiancé. Tell me about him. Terrence. He's a mechanic. Best in Ridgedale. Only one in Ridgedale, actually. The resort will need a full vehicle maintenance facility. Guest cars, shuttle buses, service fleet. If he's half as dependable as you, He's twice as dependable as me. Harold nods. Then I'd like to meet him. Whitney looks down at the notebook in her lap. She opens it to the first page. Her mother's handwriting. The meatloaf recipe. In the margin, in faded pencil, "If they clean the plate, you did your job right." She closes it, presses it to her chest. She always said this food could go somewhere. Harold reaches across the table and puts his hand over hers. It's going somewhere now. What happened next didn't just change Whitney's life. It changed Ridgedale, the whole town, from the inside out. Month 1. The construction crews arrived on a Tuesday morning. 3 trucks, a crane, and a team of 12, half of them hired locally, just like Whitney demanded. The old neon sign that read Dee's Hometown Grill came down gently. Dee watched from across the street, arms folded, chin up. She didn't cry, but she didn't look away either. That same week, a news crew from Atlanta drove down. A reporter with perfect hair and a cameraman who kept tripping on the gravel lot. The segment ran that Friday night on the 6 o'clock news. Small-town waitress skips her own wedding to save a choking stranger. Now she's running his restaurant. It was supposed to be a local interest piece. 30 seconds, maybe 45. Instead, it went viral. 200,000 views in 48 hours. Then 500,000. Then the comments started pouring in. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Whitney Sanders is the person I want to be when I grow up. Who's cutting onions at 2 a.m.? Month 3. Whitney started her hospitality management certification. Online classes, 3 nights a week, after her shifts. She'd sit at the kitchen table in the trailer with her laptop open on one side and her mother's notebook open on the other. Terrence would sit across from her, quizzing her on food safety protocols, reading questions off flashcards he'd made himself, in his own handwriting, which was barely legible. What temperature kills salmonella in poultry? 165. What's the danger zone? 40 to 140. What's the danger zone in this trailer? You, if you don't let me study. Naomi, meanwhile, had started a social media page for Lorraine's. She posted construction updates, old photos of Dee's diner, clips of Whitney studying, pictures of Lorraine's handwritten recipes, the stains and all. 15,000 followers before the doors even opened. People from 3 states asking when they could make a reservation. Month 5. Lorraine's opened. The exterior, warm red brick, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs, string lights that glowed amber at dusk. It looked like a house. Like somebody's grandmother's house. The kind of place where you walk in and exhale before you even sit down. Inside, Whitney's mother's recipes were framed on the walls alongside black and white photos of the original diner. Lorraine behind the grill, laughing. Lorraine holding baby Whitney on her hip, a spatula in her free hand. Lorraine's handwriting, big, looping, alive. The first item on the menu, top of the page, bolded. Mama Lorraine's meatloaf special, the dish that started it all. Opening night. Harold Caldwell cut the ribbon. Whitney stood beside him, holding the oversized scissors, wearing a new apron, clean, white, embroidered with Lorraine's in gold thread. Dee stood behind them, holding a jam jar full of wildflowers. Old habit. Catherine handled the press. A reporter asked her what changed her mind about the project. She paused, adjusted her microphone, and said, "I came down here ready to talk my father out of this. Whitney talked me out of my doubt instead." And then, the ripple. 28 Ridgedale residents were hired. Kitchen staff, floor staff, managers, maintenance. It was the biggest employment surge the town had seen in over a decade. The gas station started staying open an hour later because of the new traffic. The church parking lot filled up on Sundays again. People who'd moved away started coming back to visit, to see what all the fuss was about, to eat the meatloaf. The Lorraine Sanders Scholarship awarded its first 3 recipients that fall. 2 black students, 1 white, all from the same high school, all heading to Ridgedale Community College for culinary arts. Whitney handed them the letters herself on the porch of Lorraine's. in front of the whole town. Terrence opened a small auto shop next to the resort. Caldwell Premier contracted him for guest vehicles, shuttle buses, and the service fleet. He hired 2 local kids as apprentices, taught them the way he learned. Hands dirty, no shortcuts. And Dee? Dee retired from cooking. But every single morning, every single one, she walked into Lorraine's at 6 a.m., picked up a jam jar from behind the counter, and filled it with fresh wildflowers. Whitney's tradition continued. Some things you don't retire from. But this story has one more moment, and honestly, it's the one that got me. First, the wedding. 6 months after the choking incident, Whitney and Terrence finally got married. Not in the church basement, not in a rush between shifts. On the wraparound porch of Lorraine's, under string lights and a Georgia sunset, surrounded by 200 guests. Half the town showed up. The other half watched from the parking lot. Harold Caldwell sat in the front row, white suit, handkerchief in the pocket. When the vows were done, he stood up, slowly, carefully, the way he always moved now, and raised a glass. "I've built 100 restaurants," he said, "but I've only been saved once. To Whitney and Terrence, may your life together be as generous as your hearts." Dee baked the cake, 3 tiers, not from a box mix this time. Naomi did the flowers, wildflowers, of course, from the ditch behind the trailer. And Whitney wore her mother's dress. White, slightly yellowed, the uneven stitches still there, hidden under the same ribbon sash. But this time, standing on that porch, with her name on the building behind her and her mother's name on the door, she didn't need to hide anything. Not anymore. 1 year later. It's a Saturday afternoon. Lorraine's is packed, a 45-minute wait for a table. Whitney is managing the floor, checking on the kitchen, greeting guests by name, because that's what she's always done. The front door opens. A young woman walks in, early 20s, soaked from rain, mascara running. She's holding a bus ticket in one hand and a crumpled job rejection letter in the other. She looks around the restaurant like she's not sure she belongs there. She sits down in booth 6. Whitney watches her from behind the counter, watches the way the girl stares at the table, the way she folds and unfolds the rejection letter, the way she's trying very hard not to fall apart in public. Whitney pours a cup of coffee, cuts a slice of Mama Lorraine's peach cobbler, walks over, sets both down in front of the girl, and slides into the seat across from her. "Bad day?" The girl nods, bites her lip. "I've been right where you are," Whitney says. "Broke, scared, wondering if anyone in the world sees you." She pauses. "Someone saw me when I wasn't looking, so here I am." She pulls a card from her apron pocket, not a business card, a handwritten note, the scholarship application link, a phone number. On the back, in Whitney's handwriting, "Call me if you need anything. Whitney." The girl takes it. Her hands are shaking. Whitney squeezes her hand once, stands up, walks back behind the counter. On the shelf behind the register, next to her mother's recipe notebook, next to the jam jar of wildflowers, there's a framed photo, black and white, taken from Dee's security camera. Whitney, on her knees, on the diner floor, holding a stranger's head in her lap. Below it, a small brass plaque. 5 words. "Kindness doesn't check the clock." Whitney touches the photo, softly, the way you touch something holy. Then she picks up a coffee pot and gets back to work. And that's where I'll leave Whitney's story. A woman who had nothing, gave up everything, for a man she'd never met. She didn't ask his name. She didn't check his wallet. She didn't think about what she might get back. She just stayed. On her knees, on a dirty floor, while her wedding disappeared behind her. And somehow, kindness found its way back to her. Not because she expected it, but because she never expected it. That's the part that gets me. That's the part I keep replaying in my head. Because we live in a world that moves fast. A world that teaches you to look out for yourself first, to calculate, to weigh the costs before you act. Whitney didn't do any of that. She saw a man dying, and she dropped everything. Her wedding, her dress, her one perfect day, gone. Just like that. And the craziest part? She didn't regret it. Not for a single second. She went home that night, alone, looked at her mama's dress hanging on the closet door, and she still didn't regret it. That tells you everything you need to know about who Whitney Sanders is. Some people wait their whole lives for a moment that defines them. Whitney didn't wait. She didn't plan it. It found her on a random Saturday afternoon in a diner in Ridgedale, Georgia. And she was ready. Not because she knew what was coming, but because she'd been that person her entire life. Quiet, kind, stubborn about it. The kind of person who puts wildflowers on a diner counter every morning because her mama said, dignity don't cost extra. The kind of person who remembers your name, your kid's birthday, your coffee order. The kind of person the world doesn't notice until it has to. And when the world finally noticed Whitney, it couldn't look away. Yo, imagine it's your wedding day. Everything you saved for, gone. And a stranger is choking right in front of you. Do you stay? Be honest. Tell me in the comments. Drop a like if this hit you. Share it. Subscribe. See you next time.